Hey, what's up, Spartan Nation? Welcome to another episode of the Spartan Nation Podcast. Here with your host, Matt Lonsberry, and my co-host, Aiden McCrone. You can reach him at A3DANM on Twitter. We just switched that because I couldn't fit his Twitter profile at the bottom of the graphic there. So you can follow him on Twitter there. But yeah, we're gonna dive into week 2 of college football. Obviously, a lot of the discussion will be centered around Michigan State's matchup with Richmond. Looking forward to that. But first off, just a little bit of a PSA for you guys. We're testing out new internet here at my new residence, and so hopefully there's no issues. If there's any lagging or anything like that, let us know in the comments, and we'll do our best to improve on that going forward. But we're hopeful that we got good enough internet connection here to get through the show. And with that, we'll kind of dive right in here, Aiden. And first off, before we get into week 2, we're going to briefly reflect on week 1. Michigan State gets the win over Central Michigan. Slow start for sure, but a dominant second half. And so looking back, and this is something we'll normally do on our post-game shows on Sunday, but we didn't do it this last week. So just looking back at the bold predictions that Aiden and I had going into the Central Michigan game. My first one was Nathan Carter would exceed 85 yards rushing. He did that by getting 113 yards on the ground. I should have been a little bit more bold and gone for the over 100 yards. I wasn't quite that bold, but he did exceed that. My second one, Spartan defense will sack Central Michigan's quarterback 4 times. Just came up a little bit short here. They had 3 sacks on the day. Jacoby Windman, Aaron Brule, and I can't remember who had the other sack.
Derek Harmon or
Derek Harmon or Simeon Barrow. It was Barrow who had the third one. So 3 sacks on the night for Michigan State. So it just fell a little bit short on that one.
And my third one was that Tyrell Henry would have over 100 all-purpose yards. And so that one we got that, or I got that one correct. So I went 2-1 on bold predictions. As for you, your first one was that Michigan State would score their first touchdown via the pass, and it was close. Jaron Glover got to the 2-yard line, and then Nathan Carter punches it in from 2 yards out. You also had Michigan State with 2 turnovers. They should have gotten this one. Cal Halliday had the interception, and then I mentioned the Charles Bransley jumped a route and got his hands on a ball, and I thought he picked it. I turned to you in the press box and says, "Hey, there's your second pick," and then it's laying there on the ground. But that was a close one. And then the last one was Michigan State would hold Central Michigan under 275 yards. They did get this one pretty convincingly. I think Central Michigan ended up with around 219 or so. Final score was 31-7. My prediction was 30-13. Yours was 38-17. So as far as point spread, we were both pretty close. Michigan State wins by, I think, 1 more touchdown than each of us had. But so yeah, that was kind of a brief recap of what our predictions were last week. And with that, fingers crossed that the internet will hold out here. But we'll move on to tonight's show, and that's first we'll intro the game against Richmond. So this is the first ever meeting between Michigan State and Richmond. They're an FCS opponent. They were ranked number 16 in the preseason FCS poll, but then Richmond was a 25.5 point favorite in week 1 last week against Morgan State, and they get upset 17-10. Not a lot of scoring. I thought this was interesting. It was the first season opening victory for Morgan State in 11 years. So just not a good week 1 for Richmond. Being that this is an FBS versus FCS game, you typically don't get point spreads for these types of games, maybe like the day or 2 before the game. But I kind of searched around for a point spread, couldn't find one. So obviously Michigan State is expected to win pretty handily here. So yeah, that's kind of a brief little intro to the game. What are your thoughts, I guess, on this matchup? Like, we know Michigan State's going to be favored. We know they're expected to go and win. So I almost feel like the more interesting talking point is like, is Michigan State going to be able to rotate a bunch of guys, get a ton of guys playing time? Like, what are your thoughts on just this matchup, Aiden?
Yeah, I mean, if you really dive deep into college football and FCS, Richmond is definitely one of the better FCS programs. I think they won a national championship in like 2008 or something like that. And their current head coach, he's been there for I think I want to say like 6 years or 7 years now, and he's won their league and everything. So they're a solid program. I actually know this is a little random fact, but their offensive coordinator last year is now the offensive coordinator at Western Michigan. So last year they had a pretty decent offense, and now it's kind of a little bit of a struggle because they're breaking in a new OC. But I mean, I think it's important that MSU takes it seriously.
Sure.
You got to take every game seriously. But it should be a game that MSU handles. I think you saw the talent level and the way MSU was rotating guys versus Central. I think we should expect more of that this week. I think for me personally, I really want to see MSU get off to a better start. I think those starters kind of, finding a little bit of kind of chemistry, molding a little bit better this week and kind of getting off to a way better start, because obviously, scoring 10 points in the first half was not, something that MSU was hoping for and probably could have done better. And then, obviously they came out in the second half and handled their business. So I think getting off to a quicker start and then, kind of narrowing down that depth chart, or kind of narrowing down those rotations and figuring out, who's really going to take, 75 to 80% of the snaps against Washington, as opposed to, some guys in a 60-40 or almost 50-50 kind of rotation. So
Right.
seeing that, I think, is going to be really important for MSU kind of moving forward.
Yeah, and I think the expectation of Michigan State being in control throughout this game, it played into my over-unders a little bit too, that we'll get into later, as far as, picking numbers, how guys like statistics for guys and things like that. So yeah, I do expect a pretty steady rotation of guys. Continue to develop that depth. Like we've heard a lot about Michigan State from their coaches, and then how they do have depth. And now we've got to see that on the field and get those guys some chances to get some reps and get ready for that meat of the schedule, which is coming quick in week 3. I guess we'll move on to kind of our look at the Big Ten as a whole this week. And we're calling it Big Ten at a glance this week. Last time it was big game, big lame, but I stole that from somebody else, so I came up with my own name for this week. But Big Ten at a glance. So best game this week. This is debatable. There's a lot of different options here. There's not like really one game that jumps out, but there's a few good matchups this week. But I had to go with Nebraska at Colorado. Colorado is kind of like the big story in college football right now, with what they were able to do last week against TCU. Colorado's now ranked in the AP top 25, coming in at number 22, and yet Nebraska is only a 3-point underdog in this matchup. Nebraska obviously coming off of the last week's 13-10 loss at Minnesota, a game where they led for the majority of the way, and what has kind of become a pattern at Nebraska is just blowing games in the end and losing by one score. So thoughts on this game, Aiden? Are you buying into the Colorado hype, or is it a little too much too soon? What are your thoughts on Nebraska getting 3 points at Colorado?
Yeah, I mean, I think I watched that whole Colorado TCU game, and I was really impressed how they really stuck in the whole time. I haven't really been a believer in Colorado, and I think Coach Prime has done a good job. I thought he, did a good job in the offseason, but I didn't think they were ready week 1 of his first game, but apparently they were. So I think that's huge. I would still honestly pick Nebraska to win this game. I think, I think Nebraska still has a decent amount of talent. I think, Colorado, what they did was really good, but I don't know how sustainable it will be, obviously, with Travis Hunter playing both ways. I think
Sure.
he's a incredible athlete, just, already. Like, he's already an NFL kind of level guy, but how sustainable can it be? Can he can he play 150 snaps, for 12 straight games? So I mean, I think that's something that would kind of concern me. But I think up front, I thought Nebraska was decent against Minnesota, who I think Minnesota has had, a decent reputation under PJ Fleck of having good kind of offense and defensive lines. So I think that's just important to look at. So I think for that reason, I think that's where Colorado's lacking. But yeah, I would definitely say this is probably the big game everyone circled. I think Washington State, Wisconsin
Yeah.
is kind of an underrated game. I think if you want to talk about that, or if you were already planning on talking about that.
No, it was in my notables for
Mm,
other Big Ten games, but we can transition to that now. That's fine.
yeah.
Yeah, that's another one where Wisconsin's got to go to the West Coast. We know traditionally Big Ten teams, going to the West Coast, there's an added level of difficulty there. So yeah, that's definitely another one that I'm intrigued by. Wisconsin looked. I didn't watch the game, but I caught some of the highlights and looked at checked the box score. Wisconsin got off to a pretty solid start to their season against Buffalo. It was kind of jarring to see Wisconsin put up over 500 yards of total offense, but Phil Longo is a run and gun type offensive coordinator, and Luke Fickell brings him over to run the Badgers offense, and you could kind of see like just a different style of play. Now I think they did run the ball for maybe even over 300 yards, so it was still that Wisconsin pound the rock type, but a quicker tempo. And yeah, if they can merge a higher powered offense with what Wisconsin traditionally has been on the defensive end. I know Jim Leonard's not there anymore, but that's a team that can work its way back up the Big Ten hierarchy. So I'm interested to see how they handle a trip to the West Coast against a middle of the road, I think at best, Pac-12 team. But yeah, so I'm intrigued by that.
Yeah, I definitely am. I think if you follow Pac-12 football, Washington State's got Cam Ward, who's their quarterback. He's definitely someone to keep an eye on. I know that game will be on ABC. So I think if you tune into that game, Cam Ward is definitely a player to follow before that game.
Yeah, so like that one's at 6, or Wisconsin's favored
7:30
by a 7:30
oh,
kickoff.
sorry.
Okay,
Yeah,
Wisconsin's
sorry.
favored by 6, I think, in that one.
Yeah, yeah.
So as far as like picking the game, this isn't part of our like official picks, but like I think I would lean Colorado, but that's probably because I'm just on the Dion hype train. I just, when he went on at halftime of the TCU game and said, Travis Hunter, if we would have hit them on those 2 long passes, he'd have the Heisman in his crib right now. I just laughed and thought it was hilarious, and so I'm all aboard the Dion hype train. And so I'll choose Colorado. I'll lay the points and choose Colorado to cover against Nebraska. Wisconsin and Washington State is interesting. But I think at this point I would lean Wisconsin. Like I said, Luke Fickell is a good coach. He proved that at Cincinnati. Their offense, again, granted it was against an overwhelmed opponent, but it looked really good in week 1. So I'd probably lean Wisconsin for that one too.
Yeah, I don't know. I shouldn't pick Nebraska, but I think I will for this matter. And then I think I'd pick Washington State to cover as well. I think the Pac-12 has done a pretty good job so far, and I think that's definitely going to be a test for Luke Fickell and just a whole new team in year 1 and also week 2 for that matter on the road.
Yeah, no. So I got a couple other games here as far as like notable games. On Friday, Illinois goes to Kansas, which it sounds like more of a basketball game than a football game. But Kansas is actually favored by 3 points. That's probably a reaction to Illinois struggling in week one against Toledo. Almost lost the game, able to pull it out at the end there. I think with I can't remember if they scored a field goal. I think a field goal late to win that game. So, but I think I'd still lean Illinois in this one. Like Kansas had a good year for their standards last year. I think they started 5-1, but they finished 1-5 or 1-6 down the stretch. I think I would still lean Illinois on this one, even on the road. I think there's probably a big reaction to them again struggling with Toledo, but that's kind of where I'm at with that one. And then a rivalry game, Iowa is at Iowa State for the Cy-Hawk game. It's one of those rivalry games that I don't think a lot of people tune into because, I mean, let's be honest, Iowa and Iowa State don't play the most aesthetically pleasing brand of football. It's a lot of 3 yards and a cloud of dust, a lot of defense, not much scoring. So, but it is, I think, one of the better underrated rivalry games. So Iowa's favored by 4 in that one. So yeah, a couple more games there that I think are notable. Quickly, Aiden, give me your thoughts. I'm taking Illinois to win outright, and I'll take Iowa State to cover against Iowa. I don't know who's going to win, but I'll take Iowa State to cover.
All right. I actually think Lance Leipold, the Kansas head coach, has done a pretty good job with that team. So I think I'll take Kansas to cover that 3 and win, and then I'll take Iowa and the points. I think Iowa covers that. Then, like you were talking about that rivalry, I think more specifically, that rivalry has not been super competitive. It has been in the last few years when Iowa State has started to, get good with Matt Campbell, but it's been Iowa's kind of rivalry the last.
That's fair.
I don't even know how for forever, pretty much, that Iowa's kind of dominated that. So I think for that matter, I'd pick Iowa to win, and it looked like their offense was not, fully functional yet, but they were throwing the ball and they were throwing passing touchdowns, and I think
Iowa completed a pass last Saturday.
Right,
that's an improvement from last year. So
I know,
or at least threw for a touchdown. I know McNamara hit Eric All.
I think they threw 2.
Okay, yeah. So I saw the one highlight, but so yeah, big times over at Iowa when they're scoring 21 points. So. With that aside, worst games of the week. These were pretty easy. Now, if we're being fair, we could probably throw Michigan State's game against Richmond in with this kind of group because it is an FBS versus FCS. But we'll talk about that one a bunch later, or return to it later. So it's Penn State versus Delaware, another FCS opponent. And Ohio State gets Youngstown State. I know that's an in Ohio program, so there's that connection. But just a couple not great games there. Had to point them out and just point at the top of the Big Ten and say, "What are you doing? Why are you scheduling these FCS games?" I know why they do it. It's to help out these programs with funding and things like that, and also you get a little tune up for your guys. But never have liked the FCS games. But that is what it is. With that, we'll move on. Unless you have any other final thoughts about any Big Ten matchups this week.
No, I think that's it. I mean, I know Indiana also plays Indiana State, so that's
but Indiana's not good enough to get dogged on. I think for
I guess
no,
not.
I mean, no offense to Hoosiers football. They did. Michigan State stumbled their way into a loss that last year against the Hoosiers. So, but again, Indiana football not setting the world on fire. So with that, we'll move into over-unders. Thank you guys for jumping back in, those of you who did. Sorry again for the technical difficulties. But so far, fingers crossed, we're doing all right. So over-unders. I'll go first on this one, and then we'll go back and forth. So I've got my first one, Michigan State over-under 199.5 rushing yards against Richmond. So are they going to reach 200 rushing yards against Richmond? It's a big number.
Yeah, it is. I don't want to be that guy because I would expect them to have 200 against Richmond, but I'm gonna take the under for that. Man, I think they're gonna be pretty vanilla. I think they're gonna get good yardage. I think they're gonna take I think their possessions and stuff. I think they're gonna get some good field positions, just kind of close between when they're gonna get a lot of 3 and outs. I think it's gonna be at the 40s or 50, near the 50. So I think it's not gonna be crazy 80-yard drives for the most part. So I'm gonna take the under for that reason.
All right. You're probably right, but there's a part of me who just wants to see Michigan State look across the field, see who they're playing, and say we're just gonna pound the rock. I don't know that that's Jay Johnson's style. I think he likes to keep things balanced. I think he wants to take deep shots, but it would, I think, not ease some concerns, because even if you do rush for over 200 yards, it's easy just to say, well, of course it was Richmond. Why wouldn't you? So I guess I'll go under as well, but would really like to see Michigan State at least like approach that number and control the line of scrimmage. Maybe go for 7 yards a pop on the ground. I know that's a high mark, but maybe 6 yards a pop on the ground, and just control the line of scrimmage. That's something that they didn't do quite as well against Central Michigan, I think, as a lot of people would have liked. And so that's something that I want to see out of Michigan State this week, to feel better about a tough schedule to come. Is you got to start winning these battles up front. So, all right, I'll turn the page to you, Aiden. Give me your first over under.
All right. Well, I got a little bit of a fun one, so we'll see how this goes. It's gonna be Caden Hauser over under 4.5 pass attempts.
Okay, that is interesting.
We'll see how that goes.
I've got a Caden Hauser one too, and so after this one, I'll do mine.
Oh boy,
so,
okay.
4.5 pass attempts.
Yeah. So
I'm gonna go.
I think So I was just gonna say, we'll see how this plays out, because obviously you would think he'd get in. So it's kind of
right.
What point and how much of the offense are they gonna let him run?
That's a good question. I'm gonna go over. I think we're gonna see Caden Hauser either late third quarter or early fourth quarter, because I think Michigan State's gonna control this game from opening kickoff. So I'm gonna go over. Was it 4.5?
Yeah. So just I guess 5.
5 or more. Yeah, I'll go over. I think we're gonna see him sling it a little bit this week. That's where I'm at.
Yeah, I'm gonna go over as well. But yeah, that kind of question of how much are they gonna give him on offense in terms of, when he gets in. I think it's more of a when, not if. I mean, if MSU is kind of in a fist fight with Richmond, there's gonna be a lot of stories on Twitter about how MSU has not moved any or gotten any better since last season. But I don't really expect that. I think it should be a pretty easy game for them. So I'll go over as well.
Okay. All right. So we're both over on the pass attempts. That plays perfectly into my next. It's not my next one, but I'll jump to this one. I've got Caden Hauser over under half a passing touchdown. So is he going to get his first career passing touchdown against Richmond, Aiden?
I don't know. Shoot, I'm gonna take that. I'm gonna take the under on that. I think once they get into the red zone, they're just gonna run it. I don't think they want to show a ton for Washington to see, or really anyone else to see on film. I don't, obviously they have playmakers, and we've seen that with kind of Jerron Glover and how Christian Fitzpatrick really broke a big play open last game. But I'd take the under on that. But I do think he gets to throw the ball some.
All right, I guess I'm feeling the optimism tonight. So I'm thinking we're going to see Caden Hauser's first passing touchdown of his Michigan State career against Richmond. And again, this goes back to the fact that I just think Michigan State's going to control this game early and often, have a sizable lead at halftime. We'll see Noah come back out in the second half because again, you want to get him reps. He's still a brand new quarterback. That might play against me a little bit here and the whole pass attempts thing too, because just you want to get him reps and ready for the next week against Washington. But I'm gonna go with the over. I think we see Caton's first passing touchdown. All right, what's your next one, Aiden?
All right, my next one is gonna be kind of a little bit like your prediction last week. I think it's gonna be MSU over under 4.5 sacks. So I'll go. They had three last week against Central. So do they get two more?
Two more than that. They did get a lot of pressure. 4.5 is a pretty big number. But they got pretty good pressure in addition to the 3 sacks that they had last week. I'll go under. I'm gonna go with 4. So you set the number at 4.5. I'll go under. I think they get 4. I had Zion Young here for over under half a sack, but I've got a 6th one, and so we'll jump to that one. So we'll ignore my Zion Young one, but yeah, I'm gonna go 4 for the game. So just under your pick there.
All right, I'm gonna go over. I'll be optimistic about this one. Like you said, I think they were very close to getting home on Central a lot, and those 3 sacks weren't. Obviously 3 sacks is a good amount, but I'd take the over. I think they could have had a lot more, and I think against Richmond they will. I think they'll get home on that. So I'll go over.
All right. JJ, appreciate it. What I'll probably do is after we're done with this live segment, I'm going to go scrap that video. I'll probably try to splice the 2 videos together, the beginning of it, and we'll see what we're able to do at the end. But I can't do that while we're live. So yeah, we'll definitely scrap the first one and we'll salvage as much as we can. But appreciate that though, and appreciate you guys jumping back in. Yeah. So my next one. Which direction do I want to go here? Okay, I'm going to go Noah Kim over under 249.5 passing yards. So is he going to exceed 250 passing yards this week against Richmond?
I'm going to say yes. I think I'll take the over on that. I think he gets 250 before the before the fourth quarter kicks in. So I think the way he kind of took control of the field last week against Central, he did really well. I think, obviously the first half it was really the first quarter. The chemistry seemed a little bit off, but I think once things starts clicking, I think, definitely I'll take the over on that.
Yeah, I think this plays in again to when are we going to see Caton Hauser, assuming the game is in hand, which I think it will be, but that's kind of where where is Cam at when they do make the switch. So I think it's tough. Noah had 279 last week against Central, played the whole game, but again, got off to that slow start. So, yeah, I think I'll go over slightly. I don't know that he'll reach the 279 that he threw last week against Central, because again, I do think we're going to see more of Caton. But I'll go over for Noah Kim reaching that 250 passing yards. All right, what's number 3 for you, Aiden?
All right, I'm gonna go over under. I'll do another 4.5. Over under 4.5 carries for Jaren Mangum.
Okay, interesting.
So he was obviously hurt. He was hurt.
He was hurt last week. 4.5.
This is assuming he plays. So
yeah, that's true too.
Well, obviously, yeah.
Yeah, but Mel Tucker did kind of hint at that this week at media availability. I don't remember what the topic he was just talking about, but he got on the real running backs a little bit and he kind of said something along the lines of or looking to get one guy back this week or add somebody to the room. So it does sound like there's a chance that Jaren Mangum will play this week. 4.5. Just playing the odds here and not knowing that he will be in the lineup, I'll go under just because of that. If he is healthy, I do want to see him in those short yardage situations. If Michigan State finds itself in another one of those, they had 2 4th and 1s last week, couldn't get the yard. Would like to see Mangum in those kind of situations, like a 3rd and 2, things like that. So I'll go under just because of the uncertainty, but I certainly wouldn't be shocked if we see more than 5 carries out of him.
Yeah, I think if he's healthy, I would take the over on that. So I think assuming he's gonna be healthy, I'll take the over.
Okay. So let's see. I've got 2 more here. You got 2 more?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's go. I'll go this way with Richmond. I'll make a Richmond over under. Last week, Michigan State, I think, held Central Michigan to 219 yards of total offense. We know how much Richmond struggled this week 1 against Morgan State, only scored 10 points. This is kind of a bold line to set it at, but Richmond over or under 175 yards of offense?
I think I have to take the over on that.
Okay.
I think that would be really good for MSU, but I would say over on that. I think if you set it at like 225, I might take the under, but 175 might be a little too low.
That would be a dominant performance.
Yeah.
Okay, you convinced me. I'll go over as well.
Okay.
Sometimes these numbers are tough, but again, I just looking at 10 points last week against Morgan State. I don't know what their yardage was. I didn't dig that deep into it. But again, it kind of goes back to my whole rushing yards thing, where you would like to see Michigan State just put its foot down and be dominant, but 175 in modern college football, admittedly, is tough. So we'll go over. We'll go over as well on that. Number 4 for you, Aiden.
Yeah. So number 4 for me is going to be
Jim's going, or JJ's going under 175. Thank you, JJ. Appreciate that.
Okay. I'll go over under 6.5 points for Richmond.
Okay.
So I know MSU posted a shutout against who was it? Akron last year, or did Akron get 3 points?
52.
I think it was 52-0.
52-0 or 52-3. I can't remember.
I think it was
out, comment section.
I think it was 52-0. So I'm gonna go over under 6.5 points. Obviously, Central came down and scored right away, or not right away, but scored kind of to take the lead in the second half. So we'll see how that happens. But do you think Richmond scores a touchdown, or do you think it's a field goal or potentially a shutout?
Yeah, I won't go into too much detail because we'll get into this with my score prediction, but I'm going to go over 6.5 for Richmond's point total. And I'll explain myself a little bit more later why I think that, but I'm going to go over.
Yeah, I'm also going to go over, but I only have it at 7, so we'll see.
Spoiler alert for our predictions or our score predictions later. All right, my last one. There's a few different directions I could have gone here, but a lot of receivers kind of got their first taste of action. Not their first taste, but outside of Trey Mosley, Montori Foster hasn't played a whole lot. Christian Fitzpatrick hasn't. We got to see Jaron Glover for the first time against Central. Really, I mean, as far as meaningful snaps, Antonio Gates, Tyrell Henry. Glover's the one who really stood out on that 1 2-minute drive that Michigan State had at the end of the first half with 3 catches for 75 yards. Sets up their first score. So I'm going to go Jaron Glover over under 3.5 receptions. So is he going to exceed last week's reception total? 3.5.
I'm going to go yes here. I think he does get more receptions. I think, obviously he broke a couple big plays. So I don't know if he's going to get to that 75 receiving yards that he did, but I would definitely expect him to get over 3 touches. So.
Yeah, no, I think, again, after what we saw last week, there's going to be more confidence in Jaron Glover than even going into last week. I'm sure there was confidence ahead of time, but when you do it in a game and you show off those skills, coaches are going to go back to you. So I'm in agreement with you. I'm going to go over the 3.5. I don't think he's going to pop off for like 7 or 8 catches necessarily, but I think he's going to get some more reps, and against an inferior opponent like Richmond should be able to get open, and Noah's going to hit him for more than 3.5 receptions. All right, Aiden, hit me with your last one.
Yeah, so it's kind of a similar one. So it's going to be saying it kind of, I think I did this one last week, but Tyrell Henry on a over under, I'll say 100 all-purpose yards. So I'll include the returning as well.
So you're going 100 again.
Yeah.
I'm going to go over because I think Michigan State's going to force a lot of punts. And if you're getting even just 8 yards of return on 4 or 5 punts, that's almost 50 yards right there, or 50, 53, or that's not 53. I'm really bad at math apparently, but like you get what I'm saying. Like it doesn't take very many punts even if they're just like modest returns. So I'll go over on the all-purpose yards. May even break one for a touchdown, like Eggplant here says. So I'll go over. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna go over as well. I think he's gonna be the guy to. Personally, I think he could lead the team in receiving for this game specifically. I think we saw how many big plays he can create, and we saw obviously that was a Sports Center touchdown catch. So seeing that, I think just the athleticism that he has maybe too overpowering for Richmond. So I think in that sense, I'm going to take the over, but I kind of expect him to be one of the leading receivers moving forward just because of what I saw against Central.
Playing off of that a little bit, Aiden, do you think we see a second punt returner in Saturday's game after Henry? Just because, again, if Michigan State's in control, you always want to prepare for if God forbid he gets hurt at some point, you're going to have another guy back there on punt return. Do we see a second guy? And if so, speculate on who you think that might be.
Yeah, I mean, we potentially could. I think coming into the Central game, I probably would have said Alante Brown, and then obviously, he goes down the first play of the game. I have no clue. I mean, you may know about kind of the injury update better than I would, but I think he would be the guy in play for that position, kind of to be the backup. But we'll see.
Okay. I think that's it for over-unders, isn't it?
Yeah.
All right, we'll move on now to Place Your Bets, which is a look at kind of the best games around the country. I think we could have thrown Nebraska and Colorado into this one, but we already talked about that one. So these are kind of a look around the country, some of the best games going on. We start with number 10, Notre Dame is a 7.5-point favorite at NC State. Definitely an intriguing game here. Notre Dame's looked good against 2 overmatched opponents in the first 2 weeks. I think they've outscored opponents like 96-6 or something like that, something crazy. But they get a road test here in week 3 against a pretty solid NC State team. So again, before we get into that, I forgot to mention. So we did this last week. We pulled up 6 games. We picked over under, or we picked our side of the spread. I didn't have a very good week. I went 2-4 in the first week. Aiden went 3-3. So we got some work to do to get on the right side of 500 here. So Notre Dame favored by 7.5 at NC State. Who are you picking?
Yeah, I think I'm going to take Notre Dame to cover that. That 7.5. I've kind of been impressed. I really like Sam Hartman when he was at Wake Forest. I think he really helps that offense a lot. And kind of, Audric Estime, obviously former MSU commit, is Notre Dame's big time running back and go-to guy. And yeah, I think Marcus Freeman has done a pretty good job so far. They haven't had any slip ups like they did last season. So I'm going to take Notre Dame in the points.
Okay. Yeah, Kari Freeman. I would love to see Jalen Barberin back there on punt return. I think that'd be a lot of fun because we've heard about his speed. So just a note on that would be fun to see him back there. And keys to wisdom. Congratulations on your winnings. I'm assuming you got some winnings for that. So congratulations on those. Yeah, this is tough for me because I do like what I've seen out of Notre Dame this year as far as just Sam Hartman. I mean, talk about it, just a perfect fit. Notre Dame has needed a quarterback for a few years now, and they do look really good. And yet you're going on the road. I mean, I guess they did go to Dublin, but when the opponent's Navy, that's not a true road game. It's a neutral site. You know, both teams had to go over the pond, so this is a tough one for me. I think I'm going to go NC State to cover, not to win, but I think I'll pick NC State to cover this one.
Okay.
That's where I'm at with that. I won't go into much detail. I just, again, first true road game, so that's where I'm leading on this one. All right, game number 2. Number 23, Texas A&M is at Miami. They're favored by 4.5. This is a rematch of what we saw last year. Texas A&M beat Miami in College Station last year. So, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I'm going to take Texas A&M in the points again. I think I'm not really impressed with Miami so far. I think, kind of what Mario Cristobal has done just within the last kind of year and a half since he got there. He's done all right. I think he hasn't, done as well as he did at Oregon. He's still building that program up, and I think Texas A&M is, ready to bounce back. I think they look decent week 1, and I think they'll bounce back this year and be kind of a surprise team. I don't think they'll make a run for the playoff, but I think they'll be competitive in every game they play. So I'll take A&M in the points.
Yeah, that's the way I'm leaning on this one too. Both of these teams disappointed last year. I think both teams went 5-7. The difference is Texas A&M had bukus of talent. It didn't come together for a variety of reasons. We know about Texas A&M's NIL, the way they approach NIL. Maybe that had something to do with like a lack of chemistry. Jimbo Fisher's offenses was archaic, and so he brings in Bobby Petrino, which was a interesting hire to say the least. But again, both of these teams looked good in week 1 against overmatched opponents, but Texas A&M certainly has an edge talent-wise if you look just purely at like blue chip ratings and things like that. So I'm also going to go Texas A&M. I'll lay the points and go with the Aggies on this one. All right, moving on to game number 3, a ranked on ranked matchup. This is the only one I believe this week, but we've got number 20 Ole Miss is a 7-point favorite at number 24 Tulane. So, Aiden, give me your thoughts on this. I'm going to let my dog out real quick, but share your thoughts for the audience here.
I think that you're missing. There's another big ranked game, Alabama, Texas. But obviously, Tulane had a pretty miracle season last season with Willie Fritz. He's a really good coach down there at Tulane. But I'm still going to go Ole Miss. I think Ole Miss, just in terms of talent, is way ahead. I know Lane Kiffin has done a pretty good job. And at 7.5, I think it's going to be close, but I'd still pick Ole Miss to cover that 7.5 there. So I'll take Ole Miss and the points. Ooh, you're muted, by the way. So
having all kinds of technical issues today.
Yeah.
And you got the dog letting out the dog, internet issues. So kind of a jumbled show, but we appreciate you guys sticking around. Yeah, so I'm with you. I'm going to go Ole Miss. I'll lay the points. I'll take Ole Miss to cover. Again, SEC team against what is Tulane in the American?
Yeah.
Okay, so SEC talent. It's on the road, which I think is kind of cool that Ole Miss chose to go to Tulane.
Mm-hmm.
Tulane used to be in the SEC decades ago, so kind of a cool thing there. But yeah, I just think too much talent for Ole Miss, too much offense. I like when these smaller programs like Central Florida, Boise State, used to be TCU before they would join the Big 12. I like when those programs pop up and have good years. But yeah, I just think too much talent for Ole Miss. I'll take Ole Miss covering the 7 points. All right, a couple more here, and then we'll move on to our final predictions for Michigan State and Richmond. Okay. I'll go number 12. Utah is getting 8 points at Baylor. So Baylor coming off of I almost did include this one just because Baylor lost in week 1 to Texas State. Big upset. I think they were favored by 26.5 or something like that. But again, Utah's only getting 8 points. They're going to Baylor. What are your thoughts here?
Yeah, I think I'm going to go Utah on this. I think Baylor is going to make it close. I think I wouldn't be shocked if Baylor covers, but I'm still going to take Utah on the points just to be safe. But I think, Utah is a gritty team. I think every year when you think about Utah, they don't have just like a crazy amount of talent or anything, but they have more grit than almost any team that you watch. And I think that's something that, that a lot of teams can't really prepare for. I think, you look at Oregon and USC have really struggled with them in past years just because, Utah wants it more. So I'm going to go Utah here.
Okay, that's probably sound logic, but I'm going to do the whole like NFL approach where when one team looks really bad one week, they typically come back and play much better the following week. There's one of two things is true here. Either Baylor is just really bad, and that's why they got beat by Texas State, or the preparation wasn't the way it should have been. Maybe they overlooked Texas State looking ahead to this game against Utah. So I'm going to bet on the other side. I think Baylor shows up hungry and aggressive to prove themselves after an embarrassing week 1 loss. I'm still taking Utah to win the game, but I think Baylor covers the 8 points. All right, moving on we've got 2 more here. Number 13, this is another one of a similar type game. Number 13, Oregon is favored by 6.5 at Texas Tech, who's coming off of a loss to Wyoming. So again, similar situation. Texas Tech was expected to, be at least a dark horse in the Big 12, and then they go up to Wyoming and get upset in their opener. Where are you at with this one? 6.5 is what Oregon's favored by.
Yeah, I think when you play on the road, especially week 1, and kind of a weird, and just anytime you play on the road against kind of just a group of 5 team when you're a Power 5 team, I think that definitely will throw you off. So
sure,
just in that sense, but I'd still take Oregon. And probably what was the line again?
6.5.
6.5. Yeah, I'd take Oregon in the points here. I think Oregon's really high powered this season. If you remember, I had them in my playoffs, so I think they're still a really good team. But yeah, Texas Tech, looking to bounce back. Obviously, they finished strong last season, and they can still compete for the Big 12. I think the Big 12 is pretty wide open as it always is. So yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm agreeing with you here. I think Texas Tech can still be a thorn in the side of some of the Big 12 contenders, but certainly a concern when you lose at Wyoming, and then you got Oregon over here. Again, it was Portland State, but they threw up 81 points in week 1 against Portland State. You bring back Bo Nix. Mario Cristobal recruited really well there, and that hasn't slowed down at all under Dan Lanning. So yeah, I'm leaning Oregon on this one too. I'll swallow the 6.5. I'm actually a little bit surprised by that number, but again, you're going on the road against a Power 5 team. But I'm going to go Oregon for this one. All right, the main event of the weekend is definitely going to go down in Tuscaloosa. So we've got number 11 Texas is a 7-point underdog at number 3 Alabama. Biggest game of the week. What are your thoughts, Aiden?
Yeah, so I picked the points, and win outright for every single game. But this game, I'm actually going to take Texas.
Okay.
I'm going to take Texas. I would take their money line. I'm going to predict an upset in Tuscaloosa. I think Texas really had a shot at them last season, and they went down until the end, and then Quinn Ewers got hurt, and definitely hurt their chances. But I think if Ewers obviously stays healthy for this whole game, I think, this is definitely a big upset and a big statement. I know Nick Saban does pretty well against his former assistants, but I'm gonna take Texas in an upset.
That is bold. And Ewers did get hurt pretty early in that game. It seemed like last year too. So
Yeah.
and had already thrown for quite a few yards against Alabama.
Mm.
So I totally get the logic. I understand it. But man, like there's something about Alabama at home that I just can't get behind it. And I do like Texas as far as the team this year. I think they're my pick to win the Big 12. I think they're both our picks to win the Big 12 this year. But Alabama is just, I mean, they're still the, even if they're not the premier program anymore with Georgia. If you go back over the last decade and a half, it's Alabama. So I'm gonna swallow the 7 points. I'll take Alabama to win and to cover. I don't think it's going to be. I don't necessarily think it's going to be a blowout, but 7 points. I feel
Mm.
comfortable with the tie. Jalen Milroe wins the starting job down there. He looked really good, albeit against Middle Tennessee State, but he scores 5 touchdowns, 3 passing, 2 rushing. So I'm going to go with Alabama on this one. Wouldn't mind being wrong about that though. Like I kind of like it when things get shaken up a little bit.
Yeah.
I have a very good friend who who's an Alabama friend. He's actually my dad's best man, but he and I talk college football all the time. He won't like the fact that I'm picking Texas, or not picking Texas, but kind of pulling for Texas. But I'm going to pick Alabama to cover the 7 points. All right, and with that, we will get to the game that most of our audience here cares about the most this week, and that is Michigan State hosting Richmond, coming off of that 31-7 win against Central. Aiden, give me your score prediction and how you see this one kind of playing out.
Yeah, so my score prediction is MSU 52-7. So kind of very handled, they handle that game pretty well. I think Richmond will be shut out the first half. I think they'll get, a late touchdown at the end of the game, but I think, you know, MSU handles business. I think, it really seemed, that second half they came out against Central, they were there to prove something. I think that is a message that it seemed like, at least, that the coaches were trying to send, at halftime, and after halftime they kind of got it clicking. So yeah, I think 52-7. I think the offense dominates, just really with the weapons that they have. I think getting, for me, again, I'm just going to be going back to the offensive line and really seeing how they can improve, and just, where they are as a unit, because that's really the key right now. Because you saw what Nathan Carter did. He can make big plays. You saw what Jerron Glover and Tyrell Henry did, and even Malik Carr. You know, those guys are really talented, and Noah Kim seems comfortable back there. So it's just,
Right.
Figuring out that running game, because the offensive line has done really well. Even last year, they didn't give up that many sacks, but it's really comes down to the offensive line on the run game.
Yeah, no, I get the logic. 52 is a lot. That's definitely an offensive explosion. I'm not quite that high on the offense because I do think with the new clock rules, it goes by a little bit quicker when you're running the ball. And then I do think Michigan State is going to try to run the ball effectively and maybe be better than they were a week ago. But I still have them winning big. I've got Michigan State 41, Richmond 10. I think Richmond gets a field goal with their first team offense out there, kind of like against Michigan State's first team defense. Like I think they get in field goal range, not going through. And then that touchdown, like you said, comes late. Maybe when Michigan State's got some backups in on defense, they get a drive down there. So I got 41-10. Michigan State coming out on top in this one. I've seen some people throw in their score predictions, so we'll throw up a couple of those. JJ's got 45-3. Keys to Wisdom 45-7. Eggplant with 38-3. You guys can go ahead and throw some more in there. We'll throw those up. But
I'll pose this question while we're at it. Is there a certain number that MSU needs to score on offense for you to be, I guess, content? And then is there a number on defense where if they get over, 13 points or 17 points, is there a level of concern, I guess?
That's a good question. I think over 17 would probably be concerning. A lot of things can happen in a football game, like to
Right.
get to 17. Like that's like, yeah, I don't think a lot of people would be pleased with 17, but that's still not an alarming number. But as you get up to 20 or something like that, then it's like, okay, what happened here? So as far as defense, I think that would be that number. Offensively, that's a good question too, because again, just the unpredictability of it. I think if you would have said Michigan State's going to score 31 against Central Michigan, I wonder what the fan base would have reacted, how they would have reacted to that. I think most of the fan base would think, okay, Michigan State's going to come on top in that scenario. It's an FCS opponent. I think you got to get to, I think I'm trying like 33 or more, because that's 4 touchdowns, or maybe 34 or more, because that's 4 touchdowns, a couple field goals. You want to see Michigan State finish drives with touchdowns. I think what holds you under that 35 or 34 range is if you're kicking field goals, and you certainly don't want to see that against an opponent like Richmond. So that's where I'm kind of at with the offense. I would say 34, 35. Do you have any like what were the numbers in your head as you're asking that question?
I don't really know. I would say in terms of level of concern on defense, I wouldn't put a particular number to it, but I would say, if it's within a, 2-score game or kind of like a 10-point game or a 1-score game, I would have a level of concern. And that same thing for the offense. Like if Richmond's playing their best game ever, that's one thing. But at the same time, you would hope that MSU, improves even more than what they did last week too. So I would say that there wouldn't be a point, I wouldn't put a number to it, but I would say if it's within, a 2-possession game, I would say that's a level of concern just on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, no, I think again, it does matter how this game looks. Like you want to, I've said it a few times now, but you want Michigan State to come out and just be in control from the opening kickoff. And there's also a difference between giving up like an early score where you're still settling in, and then from that point on you just kind of stack some drives on each other. So, but you don't want to get in any kind of dogfight. Not that I think Michigan State is in any danger of losing this game whatsoever, but perception wise, you just don't want to be fiddling around with an FCS team. I think there are some good vibes amongst or inside the program after how the second half against Central Michigan went. So you want to keep that rolling. You want to have good vibes. You want to be feeling good heading into that week 3 matchup when you welcome Washington. So yeah, you definitely want to go in there and handle business. All right. I think with that, we'll call it a night. Appreciate you guys for jumping back in after those technical difficulties we had at the start of the show. Like I said, I'll probably take the 2 videos and splice them together and throw that on YouTube for the full show. And I'll get to work on that tonight. But I appreciate you guys jumping back in. Looking forward to getting back to Spartan Stadium on Saturday for another week of Michigan State football, and we'll react to that on Sunday. The Lions play in the evening, I believe. Night game
Thursday night.
Is it Thursday night?
Yeah, it's tomorrow night.
Well, there you go. That kind of shows you like where I'm at, because I'm a college football guy first. I do watch the Lions most Sundays because again it's on, but I watch so much football on Saturday that
I know I'm almost burnt out on for the NFL. It's kind of, I'm like, I have it on in the background, but I'm not paying attention as much as Saturday I got I got 3-4 screens going on.
Yeah.
Probably watch, a total of over 20 games, and then Sunday is kind of just coasted out.
So that's even better. So the Lions will get the week 1 out of the way tomorrow. And so we'll probably shoot for early afternoon on Sunday for our post-game show. Hope you guys will join us then. And we'll react to what we see from Michigan State and Richmond on Saturday. Thanks again for joining us, and we'll see you guys next time.